Hello and good morning, and welcome to this exciting webinar, today part of the UNDP SDG Local Solutions. First of all, we have interpretation to French and Spanish.
So you basically need to click on the bottom side to listen to the interpretation.
So welcome to all. I'm Diana Lopez. I'm an advisor on cities and local government here in New York at UNDP headquarters. I just wanted to give you some technical advice. So first of all, we are recording this webinar. It will be edited and uploaded in YouTube. So thanks for giving us the consent to use your image and your wonderful contributions. Second, for participants, you have the option to introduce yourself, make questions, share resources, share web page, articles that you're working in. For that, please use the chat that is also on the bottom of your screens, and then feel free to interact with us and with the speakers and with each other through the chat. Without further ado, let me introduce the speakers and the theme for today. So the moderator of this session is going to be our good colleague Begwin Tom, who joined us from India. He's the project supervisor in the Rourkela Global Mayors Challenge. And in fact, it was the project in Rourkela that inspired today's theme about how local governments can enhance the existence of green skills in the local population and the local workers in the workforce, and through innovation, create jobs and better livelihoods for their citizens through this kind of new skills needed for the green transition, the green revolution, as local governments are more and more contributing to climate action and trying to be more sustainable in all the things they do. So as they are transitioning through green energies in everything that the local governments do, how to have also the local capacities to support this green revolution in energy in city levels. We have two contributions today. The first one will come from José Alberto Valdés Palacios. He's the head of General Directorate on Development and Energy Sustainability of Mexico City in Mexico. Muchas gracias, José Alberto, por estar con nosotros hoy. And then we will have a presentation and contribution from Richard Wakeford. He's the director of Green Carbon at Brackley Holdings and Eco Energy in the United Kingdom, and they have been supporting many local governments to exactly find these new skills and solutions for green energy. So without anything else, I think, Begwin, the session is yours, and thank you very much to all of you for being with us today.
As the moderator of this session, I would like to again welcome you all to this webinar. We are a truly global crowd because we are representing around 5 continents: Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, and South America. And I would like to say that the fact that you're present here to attend this webinar is a strong sign that the future of green energy transition will be bright and shining. And I hope you will be learning a lot from this webinar and apply it to your cities. Here we are discussing on how local skills can be generated for installation, operation, and maintenance of green energy solutions. Large deployment of different types of green energy solutions has been happening across the globe, both in the developed and developing nations. From national level to city level, green energy transition is happening at many forefronts. Local governments like us, Rourkela, Northampton, and Mexico City are working hard to make the cities green and more sustainable for their residents. And for this transition, we need new technologies and new approaches. And this calls for new local capacities. And it could be particularly challenging because these technologies are evolving daily, and new skills and knowledge is needed to install and maintain these emerging services and infrastructure. And this requires significant investment in education and training to equip them for this new job and opportunities. And when we look at this emerging sector, usually the young and creative group of the population are first and are able to adapt and learn quickly these technologies. And we should also make sure that no one is left behind in this transition and giving this training. For example, in Rourkela, we have solar-powered cold rooms, and these cold rooms are operated by women members. So as a city, we build the infrastructure, and then we make sure that we provide capacity building and training to these women members so that they are able to on-the-job training to operate it. And once they have started to operate it, we have not left them behind alone, but we still provided them mentoring and handholding support. So whenever they have a challenge, they can come to the mentors to solve their challenges. And this is very important when we consider the sustainability of the project, that training, capacity building, handholding are very important. So today in our webinar, we'll be seeing how City of Northampton and Mexico City solve this challenge of finding, training, and retaining local skills required to install, operate, and maintain new green energy solutions. Today, we will be getting two perspectives, one from the public sector perspective from the Mexico City and from the private sector perspective from Northampton. And as our first speaker, I invite Alberto from the Mexico City to present how Mexico City has been able to find local skills for green energy transition.
I'm very thankful with all of you for this opportunity. I'm going to speak in Spanish. My English is a bit primitive for this event, so I will try to explain this as better as possible. So that's why I'm going to use a clear language so that the message can be conveyed with more success. So thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm very happy and honored to participate in this forum. So we're going to talk about how we've tackled or addressed the different capabilities of the human resources to be able to sustain the quality infrastructure of the renewable energy, in mainly the solar energy, which is the one that we have in quite abundance in Mexico. Because of the heights over the sea level, which is pretty high, it's more than 2,200 meters, our wind, it's pretty weak. That's why the main solutions that we have for the moment are with solar energy. And on the other side, we do not have the possibility in Mexico City to install farms that use combustion processes or refinery processes or conversion of fuels. That's why we have to aim at most to seize our resources, and sun is very nice and very abundant to us. That's why the same head of the government of the City of Mexico in this week, also president of our country, elaborated a climate action plan for the Mexico City to the year 2019 to the 2024 with 7 axes. The 7th one belongs to the solar city, which is I'm going to explain a bit more. It's basically focused to generate energy in the city, but we also address problems of energy efficiency that come directly all together. Basically, we have energy efficiency and also energy generation with renewable energies. And for this, we need to establish a quality infrastructure at the same time that we are using this solar energy at a high level in big industries, sorry. And this is a new situation for the Mexico City and even for the Mexican country, if we're taking account our story 10, 15 years ago. We have some previous experiences from 30, 35 years ago. These projects were really isolated and pretty unique, but now, today, with this big capillarity and permeation of the renewable energies, we need to reinforce our skills. So this program of Solar City is composed by 5 strategic axes. And the first one, which is very significant, it's the education and training in skills to be able to support and sustain the growth of the technology that we will use in the city. And there's 2 significant facts by which we are focused towards these skills that I'm going to explain to you. One of them, it's the accelerated growth of the distributed generation in Mexico, and also the high consumption of thermal energy that we have at our houses and industries. So we've observed that this growth from the year 2016 or 2017 has accelerated, has totally skyrocketed until this year. We have used nearly 4 gigawatts of capacity in distributed generation. If we maintain this kind of growth, we will reach the year 2030 with 8 gigawatts of close to the 40 that we need to meet our international goals and our international commitments or agreements for the year 2030. 8 gigawatts will be contributed with this distributed generation and exempt from the fluctuations of the electric market. So this means that we need to strongly support this methodology, this way of installation of solar energy facilities, because a big part of the investment is done by the individuals. It's done by the homes or the businesses by themselves. So the government needs to pay attention just to survey a quality, good infrastructure, and has to also pay attention or survey that the distribution grids and networks are the proper ones. So given these numbers, we decided to support the installators of distributed generation. The other fact is that most of the energy consumed in households, it's close to the 50% just dedicated to water heating for health reasons, and other 23, nearly 24%, it's for cooking or processes of food preparation. This means that nearly 75% of the total consumption of a household is through heating, through which we obtain in Mexico quite high levels through LP gas, this pressured liquefied gas. So given these 2 characteristics, we decided to prepare or train the technicians that are going to be working in these installations, with around nearly 3,000 young workers that we have trained and educated through 86 courses that entail this skill training and then a certification. From all of the workers that we trained, not all of them are able to reach the certification level, but the ones that do, they obtain their certification of professional installator or installers. And the ones that do not make it, then on their own, they would have to do an additional training, but it has to be paid on their own pocket. So the one that we are talking us now about, it's paid by the government. And we have this competency standards. The first one is solar heater installation competency standards. free convection. That will be the first one. The second one, it's forced circulation solar for bigger installations or facilities, like for example, sports clubs or gyms, restaurants, or some other businesses. The third one, a standard competence for photovoltaic systems. A fourth one, for a competence standard for technical consultants or sellers, because we need to promote the sales with people which are really trained and have these skills and knowledge. So we train them as consultants and sellers, and they are placed in shops that work selling solar systems. And the last one, it's a standard for supervisors of systems. We have tried to get to a gender parity level. So we want to have a gender parity of around 40 or 50%. So there's around 40, 50% of women's participation in these processes. The course for solar heaters trains or strengthens the knowledge of the installators, especially in energy distribution systems. We consider this distributed energy because we are generating heat, and heat is energy generation. Unfortunately, we do not have a heat market as we have a market of electric energy. And this is very important because heat is very expensive to obtain. The energetic price through the fuels is in many, many cases more expensive than electric energy.
No, we have 2 more minutes left. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes left. Yeah.
Okay, great. We also have this standard of forced circulation. The standards for the installation of photovoltaic systems or modules, and it includes the verification of the installation systems and also the verification of the processes of the installation. Also the systems for residences and small businesses, also the verification and certification. And that we have in the program. And we have 2 types of processes. One in which we have the students, we train the students, and if the student obtains the quite good ratings over the 80%, so we give him or her that 100% of the training until they obtain the certification. But if the worker or the student does not seize the course, they are just paid the 80%, and the rest of the 20% has to be paid by them. So they would not obtain the certification. But if basically they just have a certificate insurance that says this person has done the course, but this person does not have the certification. So how do we promote this to make it compulsory for the workers as a public policy? Well, for all of the programs that we have of solar energy in our city, we demand that in the quality infrastructure, the participants need to have teams which are certified and installers that are certified too in both modalities.
Excuse me, Alberto.
In photovoltaic,
Any final conclusion? Yeah. Okay.
this is the process. So we have the students, and later we hire them, but with a prior evaluation. If they have the ability, we put them into a grant, which is called Jóvenes Construyendo el Futuro, or Youngsters Building the Future. And then the government places them in a company with a $400 monthly salary paid by the government, and the company has to pay other 400 for them because they are already qualified. And for a year, it is the program in which the government promotes half of this salary, which is $400, is pretty low. And sometimes the company, instead of paying other 400, they basically complete the salary and they are hired professionally. But this first scholarship is very important to place them in the labor markets. And for this, we have had the approval and support of all of the government entities, as the Federal Commission of the City, the Regulatory Commission of Energy, as Secretary of Public Education, other entities. So all of them trying to promote the solar energy in our country. So basically they have agreed upon this initiative, and they strongly support the program. I would just want to wrap up saying that this program is born from the support of the PNV office in Mexico that strongly supported us at the beginning of the program. And they helped us to train and to elaborate also the quality infrastructure with these results that you're seeing on the screen. So this is the program that I wanted to show to you, and we are here for you and very thankful for this nice invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alberto. A very, very, informative session. I learned a lot of things from this session. Yeah, now I welcome Richard from Northampton with a follow-up question to Alberto.
Bowen, thank you. Alberto, thank you very much for that oversight of what you've been doing in Mexico. You've achieved a huge amount with all the different initiatives, and obviously quite a cohort of people being trained and being placed. Did you hit your expectations or your aspirations for training and development of these systems? And perhaps what were the lessons learned in delivering that? Are there any things that we could learn and take from that and improve on?
Well, lessons learned, there is a problem with recruiting people. Usually we have a hard time recruiting and finding talent. Sometimes we need to do previous qualifications or exams to ask for a minimum knowledge of plumbing and electricity and all the systems. So we need to have some previous courses for many people. There's other ones that they do have the previous knowledge, and truly they just need the certification to be able to work. But it has been quite difficult to recruit talent. Once we have the guys, or well, the students, we need to try to increase the numbers. To try to have more than 3,000. But because out of these 3,000, only 700 have obtained the certification. This is a problem because we need to increase the numbers and the efficiency, because we have done the big expenditure in training them at the first stage. So I think this will be basically the main problem that we encountered.
Thank you very much for that. So obviously finding the right people is still difficult across the world.
True. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Alberto, for the answer. And now we move on to Northampton to hear experience from Richard. Over to you, Richard.
Well, thank you very much, Bowen, and thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a real pleasure to be here on the webinar today. I'm going to cover the development of the skills that we've looked at here in Northampton in the delivery of photovoltaic PV systems. I will cover a bit about our business to put it into context, the problems that we faced in setting our business up, which we set up barely a year ago, some of the solutions we've arrived at to get over those problems, and then importantly, the outcomes. So what of those solutions are delivered for us as a business? So why did we create GenCarbon? Well, you've heard from Mexico that actually there's a growing demand for photovoltaics across the world, and we're definitely seeing that here in the UK. Our own government has predicted that by 2030, we should have delivered more renewable energy generation than we have done to date. So in the next 6 years, we've got to deliver more than we've delivered in the last 25 years. Our own trade body, the Solar Energy UK, has planned that forward for the photovoltaic PV systems. And you can see the green line here that our rate of delivery is increased, only briefly matched back in 2014, but we have to sustain this over the next 6 years. We also find that most of the businesses involved in the sector at the moment are very front-end loaded. They're looking at the design, they're looking at the development of systems, and there's a real shortage of people able to fix the nuts and bolts to do the actual installation. And that, therefore, for us becomes really quite important if we're trying to get these systems on the ground. We also find that if we've got a growing business, a growing industry, that we're going to be attracting more people into that. But they're going to come in untrained, just seeing that golden egg of opportunity and growth. But they won't necessarily understand the risks associated with doing solar installation on rooftops. Not only the fact that panels are live as soon as they're unboxed, or that they might blow away in the wind, but actually they may be penetrating into roofs and causing problems with structures and weather tightness around buildings. Our grid scale systems here in the UK were also delivered by a lot of foreign labour. And again, as this takes off across the world, that foreign labour may well return back to its own native countries and deliver renewables and solar in their own countries, understandably. Whereas locally here, our smaller scale is delivered by localised teams who are prepared to travel. So we certainly felt that there was a need for a new business in this sector, and there was a huge opportunity for us. As I say, we established ourselves just barely a year ago. But in establishing ourselves, we wanted to set some certain standards. What were we as a business looking to benchmark ourselves against? Well, we wanted a trained workforce. Really important that our teams, our people that we employ, understand the whole remit of PV installations, not just the mechanics, but actually how does the system work? Why are we doing it? We didn't want to recruit from within the sector. Really important that if we were trying to just pull people from other teams under the businesses, we'd just be driving up costs as these people became more valuable in the sector. We, of course, wanted to focus on quality, but productivity was also important to us because we wanted to make sure we were competitive with our peer group. And as I say, we were quite keen that our employees had a willingness to travel. So having established GenCarbon and set these standards, we identified there were a few problems that we had to overcome. Recruitment being the first one. Well, why would people come to us as a startup business rather than going to an existing established business where work was predicted? And what about the skill base? Well, why come and be trained potentially at not a huge income while you're being trained when you could today go and get a job in the solar sector? There are lots of opportunities out there. And particularly, even if we had wanted to train, at the time there was no specific practical training for PV installers. So we arrived at a solution. The solution here in the UK for us was called a sector-based work academy program, which I appreciate is a bit of a mouthful, and my apologies to all the translators out there, but we've abbreviated it to SWAP, Sector-Based Work Academy Program. And this is training that is funded by central government. It's bespoke training. is not necessarily delivered by other people commercially. If I want to become a forklift driver, there are lots of people out there who could train me to be a forklift driver. But to be a solar installer, there was nothing available. So we ticked that box. Programs that were developed by an employer, so us in this case, but they were delivered by recognized training colleges. And we allied ourselves with Moulton College in Northampton, who the government recognise and support through other courses that they deliver. The duration of the courses on a swap can vary, and we opted for 3 weeks, giving us a balance of practical skills, but also some technical classroom-based experience and knowledge. But importantly for us and for the government who are funding this, these schemes are only open to those who are currently unemployed. So the benefits to us that we weren't recruiting from within the sector, we weren't in many ways recruiting from any sector. We were bringing people fresh to the industry, so we weren't competing with other people. And with that, we were bringing in people who had a loyalty to us if we gave them work. It was our training. We had developed the scheme, so it met our needs as a business, but it was paid for by the government. Importantly for us, there was no obligation to recruit, only interview. We didn't have any sway in who was coming on for courses. The government were keen to upskill everyone in delivering and giving them this experience. But we wanted to be able to cherry pick, and we were allowed to do that at the end of the course by only choosing those that we wanted to do. So we'd got this concept. We worked and engaged with Moulton College to develop the right course content, which took quite a while. We hadn't got a blueprint that we could work from, so we had to use our own knowledge and experience as to what we were trying to achieve. We then looked at the rig, the tools, the materials that the teams were going to use, and we got some of the suppliers to donate equipment to the college. The college had to recruit a lecturer, which they found quite difficult, and I hadn't appreciated the challenges that would have proved. And actually recruiting the trainees was also quite difficult, and we've heard a bit of that from Alberto, the problem about bringing the right people in. But we found we succeeded, we delivered a course, and of course we've done a review, we've improved, and we've gone on to deliver more courses. We've done 4 now, the 5th is planned, and the 6th in the new year. On the course, we have a test rig. We built something that wasn't going to damage anyone's property. We built it on the ground, but it allowed people to practice their heart's content. There was no health and safety risks working at height. We also had equipment delivered. This is a ballasted system that our trainees could play around with, build, assemble, disassemble, understand how it all goes together and the concepts behind it. The college got donated a training rig, giving the full explanation of solar, how it generates, the conversion from DC to AC power, and how it operates. And so we also looked at the electrical side as well as just the mechanical and paneling side. As I say, they were given this training rig so they could practice, practice, and practice, which suited their skill sets. We were at about 70% practical to 30% on-site. So a quick summary of the outcomes. Well, you can see from here that we've over the year, we've had 201 people express an interest in joining the course. You can see from the different colours of the bar chart here how this has grown. Our first cohort wasn't well supported, but as the knowledge grew, the unemployed people realised that actually there was a real opportunity here. Disappointingly, from those expressing an interest to actually starting on the course, there was a huge tail off. From a good perspective, it meant the courses were quite bespoke and well focused onto those that came. But it's disappointing that having had that expression of interest in joining a webinar, that the numbers dropped off. And you can see from the total numbers here that actually there was a minor tail off during the course. We then obviously hand cherry-picked those that we wanted to employ and the offers we made, and we still have a year out a few number of people still employed, 13 of the 21 we've taken on. There's a reason this green bar doesn't carry forward, is that we're actually just sending out job offers to the 4th cohort this week. So I'm really pleased we've sent out 6 job offers this week to that cohort to be employed. But from a summary perspective, 44 of those who completed the course and were interviewed were employed. And of those, 27 are still employed. So actually our success rate from employing people a year later, we've still got 27% of the people who completed the course employed. So other outcomes, you've heard that at Mexico City, there's obviously quite an investment in training and in letting people, supporting employees take on these trained people. It's a lot to take in one slide, but you can see here at the top that I've estimated that the cost for the 55 people who have been on the course is possibly 24,000. That pays for the lecturer, the training college. They all have equipment, boots and gloves for personal protective equipment.
Richard, I can interrupt. We have 1.5 minutes left.
I'll shoot through. Thank you, Aaron. You can see, though, that these people we've employed have been paying tax, but also we've lifted them off benefits. So they haven't been receiving unemployment benefit here in the UK called Universal Credit. And potentially that could be a total of 63,000. So there's been a net benefit to the government in supporting this programme. The downs and ups, the only down we've really seen, we've had a lot of high quality people come through the course, is that we've had insecurity of pipelines, so we haven't been able to give everyone a job that we'd wanted to. But from an upside, the people who've been on the course have had improvement of skills. If they haven't come and worked for us, they may well have gone to work for somebody else. The well-being of the 21 people we've employed has been huge, and we've seen them grow and develop. We've developed strong links. There's been a huge benefit to the government, but also a huge benefit to us as a business. Our first project was delivering or supporting the delivery of solar. Just unbelievable. These are people who've never been in the industry, and 6 months later, after having been trained, this is what they've been able to deliver. And I'm just flabbergasted this is what we've done. But more than that, we've now had inquiries for another 36 megawatt park, a standalone 2 megawatt park, ballasted systems, repowering systems. And I mustn't forget, given this environment, that I do believe we've actually addressed some of the UN sustainability goals. We are providing good education. These people do get decent work. We have economic growth, and we're obviously helping to support the delivery of clean energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, even I was surprised to see the size of the solar panel you guys have installed. Yeah. Now I welcome Alberto with a follow-up question to Richard.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Richard, I would like to know if in your city, in your country, there's a public policy that requests or asks for this training that you offer to all of the technicians, if it's compulsory. And secondly, if at the end of this training courses, you give a ID or a certification or any document that qualifies them as energy professionals.
Well, thank you, Alberto. There is no recognized certification for installers. The electrical systems have to be, we have a recognized certification of all our electrical engineers. And we as Gen Carbon don't look to offer that. We bring that in with outside third parties when we are asked to take that on. There is nothing for our installers that with government or bodies require us to have. And that's one of the concerns I have about the longevity and the risks going forward, is that we'll get a lot of people going onto roofs, not aware that the damage they may be causing to the weatherproofing of those roofs, or installing systems that are appropriately secured or ballasted. And that's why I didn't want us as a business taking on that risk. So I wanted to make sure that our people were trained and qualified. The clients we work for do have accreditation that they should have. So the processes potentially are accredited, but not the individuals. Going back to your second question then, the qualification, the certification of our trainees. Yes, the college do provide a training, a certificate of training, but I suspect we're the only ones that recognise it, because we've been there developing the course content, and we know that if they've completed that, the standard that they're at and what they've achieved in their understanding. Because there's no national body, it's not easily understood or recognized nationally, but something we certainly can recognize. And we go to our clients now saying we have a fully trained workforce, and actually nobody else can do that. So for us, that's a real benefit.
Maybe the experience certificate from your company is enough for, yeah, getting the next job. Yeah.
I'd hope so. I'd hope so.
Thank you, Alberto. I think we will move on to Q&A questions from our participants. First question is to Alberto. Could you advise on what are you teaching the students? Like, what are the training contents you provide for your students?
Sí,
Yes, basically it's fundamental tasks from security equipment or PPEs to start, also how to handle machinery, security elements that are compulsory to use, for example, in rooftops, also how to handle the different machines, and also the installation processes, all of the processes that entail the two modalities: energy generation on the one side, heat, and on the other one side, electricity. So the contents are about manual tasks or manual works that you need to do on the site. It's not a lot of theory when it comes to the nature of solar energy, of all that. Just basically, we give them this training and education of how to handle, how to install, and also there's the obligations of the installers, and then there's another specialist, which is the supervisor of the works. So these are the two ways in which we do the course or the training.
Thank you, Alberto. There's one more question, you're doing in Mexico City. Have you, whatever you have learned, the training and the programs, have you transferred to other cities in Mexico, the same program? Are you planning to do it?
Yes. The program, it's a national standard, which is professional skills standards. So it does not operate only for solar energy, but for many professional job positions, not necessarily just for engineers. So we are not there still at universities, because in universities, we believe that the students have much higher and broader and professional trainings. But us, what we want is to train technicians and installers. So this is at a national level, but we make it compulsory in the projects that we handle in Mexico City. And now we are proposing to have an expansion to copy this in all of the different cities, not only in Mexico DF.
Great, that's nice to hear. So you're replicating the project in other parts of the Mexico. And there was one point you mentioned about, people abandoning the program. And so how do you solve this challenge? How do you try to bring back or increase the retaining the people who have been trained in the sector?
Well, basically, it's the post courses that we try to use as a hook or a motivation. So on the one side, we have the program, which is called Youngsters Building the Future, which is not only applied for solar energy, but for other concepts with youngsters which are unemployed. So we have placed inside this program the specialists in solar energy, and it's a way for them to have a way to warranty their work. And on the other side, we sign agreements with companies. There's an international company which is of a high scope, which is for construction materials for houses and businesses. And with them, we signed an agreement by which the shop or the the company offers all of the solar systems like heaters, photovoltaic modules, investors, anything. It's offered, everything that it's solar related, with no interest during 6 months. And as installers, they have the list of the professional certifications that we issued. So this shop helps us to promote the work for themselves as self-employed for the students that obtain the certification. And the other one is the program I told you about, Youngsters Building the Future, in which we are able to have these specialists in solar energy. So there's basically motivation to say the guys and insist to them, hey, seize the opportunity, see that you're going to have a job position when you finish, at least with a grant of $400. And the entrepreneurs that will hire you, it's going to pay $400 more. That means $800. And this has worked pretty well.
Thank you, Alberto. Yeah, I like the project a lot, the performance monitoring, giving scholarship based on how much they score. Yeah, it's a very wonderful program. And now my questions are to Richard. So one of the questions was like, what do you consider the most innovative component of your program, which won't be seen in other training programs across the world? What do you consider?
I think where we've benefited from is training the unemployed. It's that ability of actually giving people. There's so many benefits to this. We're not dragging people from within the industry, even the broader construction industry. And specifically not the renewable sector. So we're bringing in new talent and new experience. Excuse me. But we're giving opportunity to people who wouldn't necessarily have perceived this as a career for them. So the fact that the government are prepared to fund this training and people are prepared to go on it, I think is something that I haven't seen elsewhere. Most of the training that we've seen is to people who are already employed and already have careers, and upskilling them or giving them a benefit to do something else. Whereas this is completely new and something that I'm surprised more businesses in our sector aren't doing.
Yeah, so I think there are two aspects. Like, so you don't have to pay more to an already skilled person. You'll be able to maintain the cost, and you're giving job to a new person. That's more important. Very true, very true.
Yes, and those individuals are really grateful that they've got that opportunity, that they've been given that career prospect. And it's not a easy environment to work in. Away
from the family. Yeah.
But also, I mean, the English weather is something we obviously like to talk about here, but particularly this year, it's been atrocious. And, we're asking people to go and work outside. I've yet to find a solar panel that works successfully indoors. So, it's not a career for everyone.
Yeah. Our next question is that what were the challenges you faced in the program and how did you solve it? Maybe one or two.
Yes, I think this was specifically around recruitment, wasn't it? I think there are two elements to this. One was we were all very disappointed by the huge number we had expressing that interest and then it dropping off as soon as we got them to come on the course. And so what we've been trying to do is work with Job Centre Plus, which is our unemployment team in Northampton, to educate the people who work in the job centre to say, look, this is a real opportunity. This is a proper career that is going to be here forever. Our business plan has us doing an awful lot of work for 6 years, but actually retaining people on because then becomes a responsibility to maintain these assets. So it's not a short-term career, it's a very long-term career that we're looking at. And I think with that, we're getting that ability now, that knowledge out there, so that the people joining on the course or expressing an interest are now moving on for the course. And you've seen that gradually pick up, that the people signing up are improving, the numbers are improving. It's then retention. So yes, we were expecting to lose people at the end of the course. Of the 21 that we've recruited, we only have 13 still on board. And I think that it is a difficult environment. we're on site at 7:30 in the morning, which is leaving home at 6:30 in the morning. It's working in whatever the weather conditions are, safely and sensibly. And if it's torrential like it has been, no, we sit in the canteens and drink a lot of tea. But actually, that is not for everyone. And from our perspective, we need to give people that understanding when they're on the course. They need to have that exposure to this is what the expectation is. And so part of the course, we try and get them onto a site so they can actually understand it and see what it is they want. And then we can have an open conversation with them. Say, well, is this for you or isn't it? It doesn't suit everyone. We've lost people, as I say. Our youngest recruit, who is an Afghan refugee, decided he wanted to become a taxi driver. I can't, I haven't trained him to do that. He was quite a competent solar installer, very competent solar installer. But we've had a laser technician, somebody who worked in a tattoo parlor, was made unemployed. He's been our star performer. He's come and worked for us, and he's now a supervisor with a management role and developed that on. And he's welcomed it. So I'm not sure I've got a solution to you, but other than being very open and honest with people at all stages through the process, so they are coming in with their eyes open and we understand where they're coming at it from.
One quick question, like how does the wages compare when you compare with other positions, like you were saying about driver and a solar installer? How does it compare?
Favorably in my book, which is why we are seeing people coming without being trained in the industry. So the wages are favorable. I think it's the work environment that people would look at and say, that's not necessarily something I want to entertain, and that I can't do anything about that. It's one of the problems. It's outside, and it always will be.
And one important thing about your project is that you have a private sector, that is you have public funding from the government, and you have a university. So how does all this collaboration happen? Was it an existing program you got into it? And
so the SWAP, the definition of SWAP, a sector-based work academy program, is a standard program. It is something the government have, and other sectors can. It's open to anyone who has bespoke training needs, but it requires on the private sector to take the lead. So we identified the need, we identified and developed the course. We worked with Moulton College to fine-tune that, and then Moulton College applied for the funding to central government. So you're right, Owen, it is a real good mesh of those three parties coming together. But it takes the private sector to drive it forward. So we're the ones who identified the need. Going back to one of the questions that was put to Alberto, we're now seeing other areas, other regions in the UK approach Moulton College and say, well, can we have this? Can we do
we want that?
And we're thinking, well, where's our benefit out of all this? But I'm really pleased that actually they're seeing the need and they're responding to that, which is great.
Great. A final question to Alberto. Like if other cities like Rourkela or somewhere wants to replicate this program, what would be your suggestion to them? How should they go about it?
Well, we would be very pleased to share with all of you and all of the cities our structure, which comes from the government level, but which is nurtured with the inputs, as I said before, with many councils or advice, like, for example, the United Nations program in Mexico. So I can send you all of the information to see how we do the diagnosis, the different programs to elaborate this. Why do we want to train technicians in solar LRD, and even to have different wills together, like, for example, entities like yours, and convincing government agencies from your city or your country. So all of this structure is elaborated, is written down in a document which is called Operation Rules, because as we manage public funds, we are compelled to do these operation rules, which are very well done, specified and detailed in every single route to demonstrate how we obtain the money. So we would be very happy to share this with you if you'd like to. So to understand the infrastructure and reach this training too.
Thank you, Alberto. Yeah, I think many cities would be looking forward to it. And now I would like to conclude our session. And it was a very informative session, both Alberto and from Richard, on how local skills can be generated. We learned a lot from you people. If you look at Mexico City, their City Solar program, we saw how training was very important in their climate action plan. So they had dedicated certification program for solar installation and sales and promotion. And we saw that around 3,000 people attended the program and they were trained. And one thing I liked about is that, how they use these certified trainers for promoting solar energy in commercial and industrial sector. So that is very beneficial to sustain these professionals, find money, and, it helps to sustain them. And another important point I noted was that there was a good gender parity happening. Around 40 to 50% women were getting employed. That's something to be noted and to be replicated in other parts of the world. And another important thing I liked was the performance-based scholarship. So if somebody gets 10, he gets 100%. If somebody gets 7 points, he gets 70%. So that motivates students to perform. I would say it's a very structured program that could be replicated across the globe. And in Northampton, we see a similar picture there also. So they did not have a specific PV practical training courses available. There was a lack of quality in training. So that's where Richard steps in, created his own training manual. And and that's a very important thing. When employers design a program, it would be really beneficial for the it would be really practical and very useful. And government was funding it. And he showed a very clear example how training a citizen in turn becomes a benefit to the government. And as we saw there, the benefit to the government was 3 times more than the training cost. Even though there were people leaving out the program, the benefits were more than 3 times. So much thanks for Richard and Alberto for such wonderful presentation, and you participants also. Thank you so much. Looking forward to you in other local action webinars. Thank you.